President Biden said he was surprised to learn classified documents from his tenure as vice president were found at his private office. Biden addressed the matter at the North American Leaders Summit in Mexico on Tuesday. The president's special counsel said that the White House was cooperating with the Department of Justice on the review of those documents. Now let's bring in a political strategist to discuss this story a little bit further. This is Rina Shah. She is a Republican and geopolitical strategist. Good morning, Rina. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
So how concerning are these classified documents that were found?
Well, I'm certainly concerned, as are many Americans who are really scratching their heads, wondering, is there a parallel we can draw here with what went on at Mar-a-Lago when the FBI raided former President Trump's property to get hundreds of documents that had top secret markings, actually. Now, listen, there are things that we can say here that tell us that this is about former presidents, former vice presidents having access to classified documents. And does that really signal any impropriety? Does that mean we are creating risks for national security here? I think we have to be careful how we look at the situation. Number one, we know that Biden's attorneys informed the National Archives and the Department of Justice right away when they found about 10 documents as they were closing the offices of Biden's think tank here in Washington, D.C., called the Penn Biden Center. I am a bit surprised to hear Biden himself saying he's surprised at the revelation of these documents. But then again, you know, people in his position, former elected officials often do have people working for them that are tasked with doing very important tasks. I myself know that because I'm a former senior congressional aide who was helping former members of Congress close their offices. There's a lot of responsibility put in the hands of attorneys and other senior aides. And so here we are in a moment where we're wondering what exactly are the implications. What was the knowledge that Trump had, for example, of what was stored at Mar-a-Lago? What was the knowledge that Biden had of what was stored at Penn Biden Center? Also, what was the intent here? Why were those documents kept by Biden? Now, again, in contrast, the ones we know of so far that Biden had at his think tank were not marked top secret. And a very important other distinction is that these were not requested by the National Archives, whereas for Trump, for months, the National Archives had been requesting the documents before the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago.
I think a big concern here about fairness is that this was something that the National Archives and the FBI or, the government knew about before the midterm elections that might have influenced the midterm elections, but we didn't hear about it. We heard all about all of the documents from Mar-a-Lago. So I understand there is a little bit of an apples to oranges thing, but I think on that fairness, there seems to be some reason there as to why wasn't this mentioned? Why are we just hearing about it in January? What do you say to that?
Well, I do think, these things do take time to come out when certainly a government agency like the Department of Justice is involved. Any of our agencies, we all know how slow the bureaucracy can be. And I tell you, that has been one of my greatest frustrations with Washington, D.C. Things here move at the pace of molasses. It is mind-numbingly shocking as to how things make their way down from the top. And that's frustrating for everyday Americans who really want to see fairness applied across the board. I do think more will come out. I do think there are Democrats also wanting to be honest and for the sake of our republic really do the right thing and tell us what they know at this point. Again, it just seems like it's been referred over to the National Archives and the Department of Justice at this point. So it's really anyone's guess as to how we learn more. It just really relies on the honesty and integrity of our government officials. But I don't think it would be the worst thing for Congress to do its job and check the executive branch in this way. I mean, that's why we have these three branches, right? I think an investigation into this would be warranted. I hope it would be quick. I would hope it would not take severe amounts of time. But here we are in a moment where I think this is extremely disappointing to again learn that when Biden went and became VP, again, he was a private citizen, just like former President Trump. The same stuff should have applied. I don't believe that any of these former should have any of these kind of documents in their possession because, again, by our Constitution, they are private citizens.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation in your cable lineup. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-based, unbiased coverage.